to Genesis Junction. I'm Miss Christy, and we are back for another lesson in the Bible. And we are going to start out with our Bible truths. You should know these. We are on lesson 106, and we've been doing these Bible truths for the last 6 weeks. So I bet you know these answers. Let's tuck them away in our head and tuck them away in our heart, because they're very important to remember these truths. And the first one is, because God is just, what must he do when we sin? What's that? He must punish us. Yes, because he is just, he must punish us. What word means that God might not punish us, even if we deserve it? What's that word? Mercy. Yes, mercy is when he shows us mercy and grace, and he doesn't punish us even though we deserve it. Can we trust God all the time? Yes, we can, because he is faithful. And lastly, what word means that God knows all things? Big O word. What is it? Yes, omniscient. Omniscient. He knows all things. Great job. So let's review a little bit and get us caught up to what we're going to be talking about today. So in this lesson, a couple weeks ago, we talked about one of the good kings, right? His name was Josiah, and he wanted to serve God with his whole heart. When he heard God's words from the book of the law, Josiah led the people of Judah to turn from sin and follow God. Sadly, the kings after Josiah were wicked. They led the people away from the Lord again to worship false gods. And that brings us to last week. Who remembers the prophet we're talking about here? And when we went to visit, he visited this man, and then later he was put into the stocks. Do you remember who this is? Yes, this was the prophet Jeremiah. God sent Jeremiah to the potter's house. And what was the potter doing? He was making vessels out of clay. And what did the potter do with the clay that got messed up? Yeah, he squashed it and he started over. God said the people of Judah were like the messed up clay that the potter squashed and remade into something new. They needed to turn away from their sin and turn back to God, so God would not have to send a disaster to destroy them. But the people didn't listen to Jeremiah, did they? No, they didn't. They punished Jeremiah instead. We talked about how the potter worked with the clay, and it's soft and squishy, and you at home made some pots, some pottery of your own out of Play-Doh or clay or mud from outside, and made your own pottery, right? It was from something soft and squishy, and then when it dried, it turned hard. But today, we're going to talk about something else that's soft and squishy besides clay. And Jeremiah, he did not like this soft and squishy thing. Let's find out what that is. Okay. How many of you like being stuck in the mud? Raise your hands if you like being stuck in the mud. I see lots of boys raising their hands. Not too many girls raising their hands. I've got some pictures here of being stuck in the mud. Just in case you've never been stuck. Here's a picture. Oh, this girl is really stuck. I think her boots or shoes are gonna fall right off. And then here are some people trying to help this, looks like a baby elephant that's so stuck in the mud he needs help from other people to get out. Here's some other pictures. Oh, this happens. And this can happen right around here. Even a great big powerful tractor could get stuck in the mud. And then you need something even bigger than that to get it out. And here's a picture, of a truck really bogged down in the muck. That would be really hard to get out of. So those are some pictures to get us thinking about the mucky muck and getting unstuck or stuck in the muck. So, what is mud? What is mud? Yeah, it's wet dirt, right? And it also has all kinds of other things. There might be old leaves and sticks and maybe even other things stuck in it because of other things that it got stuck in the mud. So, as we saw in those pictures, all kinds of things can get stuck in the muck. Oh, I have some muck right here. Actually, this is pudding. So this is a delicious kind of muck. But let's pretend this is some muck. And now, if you were here in class today with me, I'd give you all each a little cookie. And I'd ask you to drop it and see if it would get stuck in the muck. Do you think this cookie would get stuck in the muck? Well, let's see. Whoop. It's on top. No. But if it was bigger cookie, a heavier cookie, because the heavier things are, the more they get sucked down into the muck, right? And you know what? There's an activity for you that you can make your own muck at home at the end of this lesson. So a fun thing you can do with your family this week is to make your own muck and eat it. Okay. So, real mud can be a big problem. If it's deep, things can get way down and get stuck, right? And it can be very hard to get out of. So let's find out why the mud was such a big problem for Jeremiah. So let's remember how evil the kings were that ruled for many years after the good King Josiah. It was during that time when God finally brought an enemy called King Nebuchadnezzar. Can you say that? A Nebuchadnezzar. That's a fun name. And he brought that king, evil king, he was mean, to attack the kingdom of Judah. Nebuchadnezzar was the king of Babylon. He captured 2 of Judah's kings, the bad kings, and he took them away. Then he chose Zedekiah to be king in the land, as long as he agreed to obey Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar would allow him to be the king of Judah. The Bible tells us that King Zedekiah did many evil things, and the priests and the people turned away from the Lord. They even brought their idol worship into the temple, into the holy temple of God. But that's not all. King Zedekiah also turned against King Nebuchadnezzar. He thought he could get away with disobeying the Babylonian Empire. Jeremiah warned the people that the Babylonians would attack the city of Jerusalem and burn it down. The people didn't like hearing what Jeremiah was telling them. They didn't like hearing that they were going to be destroyed. But instead of listening to Jeremiah's message, which came from God, right? Because he was a prophet, and the prophets tell exactly what God tells them to tell. Instead of listening to Jeremiah and turning back to God, they were mean to Jeremiah. Once, when Jeremiah tried to go visit his family outside the city, the guard at the gate stopped him. "Halt! Where do you think you're going?" Jeremiah explained that he's going to visit his family that lived outside the city gates. But the guard said, "No, you're not. You're going to join the Babylonians." Jeremiah said, "No, I'm not. That's a lie. I'm not going to join the enemy." But the guard grabbed Jeremiah and took him to the officials. They were so angry with Jeremiah for all the things that he'd been telling them that they beat him and put him in prison. After many days, King Zedekiah had Jeremiah brought out of prison. But later, when Jeremiah spoke about God's warnings again, the king told his officials they could punish Jeremiah however they wanted to. So now it's time to get our Bibles out and see what happened to Jeremiah. So let's get into our Bibles to Jeremiah, and we are going to go to chapter 38. Okay, chapter 38 in Jeremiah, and we're going to read verse 6 together. So the officers took Jeremiah and put him into the well of Malchijah, the king's son. That well was in the courtyard of the guards. The officers used ropes to lower Jeremiah into the well. It did not have any water in it, only mud. And Jeremiah sank down into the mud. Woo! So here we go. Here's a picture of Jeremiah being lowered down into the well, which is also called a cistern. A cistern was a deep pit dug into the ground to catch the water when it rained. Okay? So it was to catch the water. But was there water in this cistern? No, There wasn't any water. Only what? Only sticky mud. They let Jeremiah down with ropes into the deep pit. Poor Jeremiah sank down into the muck. He was stuck. What do you think would happen to Jeremiah now? How's he gonna get out of there? That's quite the predicament. King Zedekiah had a servant named Ebed-Melech. Can you say that? Ebed-Melech, who was from the country of Ethiopia. When Ebed-Melech heard that Jeremiah had been thrown into the cistern, he went to see the king. Let's find out if he helped Jeremiah. So let's go back to chapter 38 and go down to verse 9, okay? Let's see what it says. My master and king, this is Ebed-Melech talking to King Zedekiah. My master and king, the rulers have acted in an evil way. They have treated Jeremiah the prophet badly. They have thrown him into a well. They have left him there to die. When there is no more bread in the city, he will starve. So what did Ebed-Melech tell the king that happened to Jeremiah? Right, he told them what his officers had done, that they'd thrown him down into that cistern, into the muck. And what did Ebed-Melech tell him would happen to Jeremiah? Yeah, that he would die, that he would starve and die, which is a very long, slow death. At this time, the city of Jerusalem was surrounded by the Babylonian army. Remember how the Assyrians had surrounded the northern part of Israel when they captured them in Samaria? No one inside the city walls could get food or clothes or extra water, and now all the bread was gone. Do you think King Zedekiah, who was one of the bad kings, do you think he did anything to help Jeremiah in that pit? Raise your hand if you think Zedekiah did help Jeremiah. Now raise your hand if you think Zedekiah did nothing, that he just left Jeremiah in that pit. Well, let's see what happens. Let's go back to verse 10. Let's find out. Verse 10 says, Then King Zedekiah commanded Ebed-Melech, his servant, Ebed-Melech, take 30 men of my men from the palace with you. Go and lift Jeremiah the prophet out of the well before he dies. So the king did help. Good for you. Any of you that voted over here that said he would help him? He gave his servant permission to rescue Jeremiah from the pit. God used Ebed-Melech to save Jeremiah's life. Ebed-Melech grabbed some ropes and old clothes and rags and hurried to the cistern where Jeremiah was waiting at the bottom, right? He was waiting at the bottom. Sunk down in the mud. Jeremiah, he shouted down into the pit, put these rags under your arms and wrap the rope around you. Jeremiah did what Ebed-Melech told him. Soon he could feel himself being pulled and tugged and lifted out of the mud. The 30 men helped pick him up out of that hole. Up he went all the way out the top. I'm sure Jeremiah was glad to be out of there. So Jeremiah was saved from the muddy pit. But the Babylonians still had the city surrounded. There would be no escape from God's judgment. King Nebuchadnezzar and his Babylonian army attacked the city of Jerusalem. The Bible tells us that they came in and killed many people, young and old. They broke into the temple of the Lord and they stole all the beautiful treasures. Then they set fire to the temple and they burned it and the king's palace. And they broke down the wall surrounding the city. That's what kept the people safe. Finally, many of the people who didn't die were carried away, far from their homes, to Babylon. This was a terrible punishment. The Babylonian army was cruel. Remember, God is just, so he must punish sin. God was using the Babylonians to punish the people of Judah because they would not turn from their sins and listen to God. What about Jeremiah? Where was he when the Babylonians took over the city? What happened to Jeremiah? Well, let's go to chapter 39 in your Bibles. And let's go over to verse 12. And let's see what happens. Okay? Find Jeremiah. This is Nebuchadnezzar. And he is speaking to the people. He is saying, find Jeremiah and take care of him. Do not hurt him. Give him whatever he asks for. Wow. What did King Nebuchadnezzar tell his captain? He said, what? Yeah, to go find Jeremiah, to give him whatever he wants, and do not hurt him. Wow. God used evil King Nebuchadnezzar to protect Jeremiah. And then Jeremiah would live through the punishment of Judah. Even though the city of Jerusalem was destroyed, God made sure Jeremiah was safe. Later, Jeremiah even got to choose if he wanted to stay in Judah or if he wanted to go to Babylon to live. A few of only the poorest people were left behind in Judah, mostly to farm the land, to basically slave away to make the crops and the food ready for the Babylonians. Jeremiah decided to stay with them, and he faithfully spoke God's messages to these people that he stayed with in Judah. And he did that until the end of his life. Wow, so that's a pretty good story. A pretty good account about the life of the prophet of Jeremiah. And there is a lot more about Jeremiah in the Bible. If you want to read more about his adventures, because God did keep him safe through all of it, but he went through a lot. Okay? So, let's talk about your homework. Now, for the Adirondack Mountaineers, here's your take-home sheet. There is a coloring sheet, and there is also the directions for a muddy cistern snack. And actually, both age groups have this muddy cistern snack made with the pudding, kind of like dirt cups, if you've ever made a dirt cup before. Delicious. So that would be fun to do with your families. And the memory verse for the Adirondack Mountaineers is still Ephesians 2, 4 through 5. However, this week, the Durango drivers get a new verse, okay? So the older class gets a new verse. Can we read this together? This is Isaiah 30:18. Therefore, the Lord waits to be gracious to you, and therefore he exalts himself to show mercy to you. For the Lord is a God of justice. Blessed are all those who wait for him. Okay? So there is a new verse for the older class. Okay? And here's your class notes. There's a few more verses to look up in your Bible there to help you with the homework. And it is a crossword puzzle. I like those. And of course, there's a word bank there so that can help you out. There's also a coloring sheet. And then the take home, there's a maze. And the directions for the muddy cistern snack for you as well. And I want to show you something that Miss Christy did. And you can do this at home too. Okay? I am going to show you. Oh, yes. See, I had the Legos out. And I'm going to see. Hold on one second. I'm going to bring that down. There we go. And made my own cistern. So this is like a well, right? Just made it with the Legos. And you can reenact what they did to Jeremiah. They put him down into the pit, and then they tied a rope to him, and they pulled him out and saved him, right? So if you want to build that, you can reenact the lesson out of your Legos at home and have some fun. There's the army. You can do a whole army setup as well. The Babylonians and King Nebuchadnezzar surrounding Jerusalem and breaking down the walls and setting the temple on fire. Oh, you could have lots of fun with your Legos this week. So just some extra. And don't forget your mud, your cistern snack. Okay? All right. That's all for us here at Genesis Junction. Oh, I want to show you one thing. Stay right there. This is a puzzle that Miss Christy got for you. And if you can see it, it's a 500-piece one. So you can do this with your families and all work together at home. And I am going to give this to one lucky passenger. So if you show me that you're practicing your memory verse, and now you have a new one, so either the old one or the new one for the older students, I'm going to put your name, and I already have 3 of them in here, in the conductor hat. Okay? We're going to put your name on a slip of paper. We're going to put them in here. We have 3 already, 3 students that showed me they've been practicing their verse. And then on the last Sunday in November, I'm going to draw one of those names out, and someone's going to be able to have this puzzle. And then I have a Christmas puzzle to do the same thing in December. So I'm looking forward to give these away because this train, it's a beautiful puzzle. Okay? All right. We will see you later. Like the train says, toot toot. Bye-bye.